Hello everybody, the topic I am going to explain you today is labor market, and it is really important topic for examination point of view. And today I will explain you the different issues which are explained in this topic. First of all of you must know wage determination under demand and supply theory. Secondly, wage determination under government, and it includes minimum and maximum wage rate. Then wage determination under monopoly trade union. Trade union is workers association, and when it is monopoly, it means there is single association of workers. So how wages will be determined under monopoly trade union, I will also explain you in detail. Next is wage determination under monopsony employer. Monopsony employer refers to the single employer of labor force. And afterwards, I will move to the wage determination under bilateral monopoly. And bilateral monopoly is the phenomena in which there is single seller and single buyer of labor. Afterwards, we will move to wage determination under MRP theory. MRP stands for marginal revenue product. So this is again the theory which carries features of perfectly competitive market. And then causes of wage differentials, why different people earn different amounts. And we will also discuss economic rent and transfer earnings, as well as quasi rent. So these are the topics which are explained under labor market, and each topic is definitely huge. So all of the topics cannot be covered in just one video. I will explain to you in this video. I will explain to you wage determination under demand and supply theory, and subsequently I will explain each and every point I have basically mentioned here. So you can watch multiple videos for each topic. So today I am going to explain you the theory of demand and supply of labor and wage determination under demand and supply theory. So starting with the definition of demand for labor. Demand for labor is also known as derived demand, because demand for labor is not direct demand. It depends upon demand for goods which are produced by labor. So demand for labor depends upon the demand for goods which are produced by labor, and as well as it also depends upon the wage. If wage rate is high, demand for labor will be low, and if wage rate is low, quantity demand for labor will be high. Factory owners and business owners require labor, so they demand for labor, and they mainly consider the wage rate of the labor. If wages are high, their potential to hire workers will fall, so they will hire lesser number of workers. And when wages are low, their potential to purchase when wage rate is low, their potential to hire workers will rise, so they will employ more workers. If we draw demand for labor, then demand for labor curve will look like this. We have quantity of labor on X, and we have wage rate on Y-axis. Demand for labor will look like this, negatively sloped. So we have quantity of labor on X. This is demand for labor curve. On Y-axis, we have wage rate. This negatively related demand for labor curve shows the negative relationship between wage rate and quantity demand for labor. If wage rate is high, let's say wage rate is W, then quantity demand for labor will be Q, let's say. And if wage rate falls to W1, quantity demand for labor will rise to Q1. So there is negative relationship between wage rate and quantity demand for labor. And if there is change in wage rate, it will show movement along the same curve from point A to point B. And wage is actually the price of labor. In goods market, we discuss demand for goods, and demand for goods curve is also negatively sloped, which shows negative relationship between price and quantity demand. Currently, we are discussing about the demand for labor, and quantity demand for labor is also negatively related to the wage rate. If wage rate falls, quantity demand for labor will rise, and it shows movement along the same curve. On the other hand, if there is rise in demand for labor due to non-wage factors, non-monetary benefits or non-pecuniary benefits, then demand for labor curve will shift to the right. And if there is fall in demand for labor, then demand curve will shift to the left. Now we can have a look on these concepts. increase and decrease in demand for labor, increase and decrease in demand for labor due to non-wage factors. And what are those non-wage factors which cause shift in demand curve? They include demand for goods. Non-wage factors that shift demand for labor curve include: number one is demand for goods and services, and number two is productivity of labor, and number three is productivity of machines, capital, and number four is cost of employing the worker. Number four is cost of employing worker. Demand for labor is dependent upon the demand for goods and services produced by labor. If demand for goods is really high, then demand for labor will also be high. And if goods are not demanded in the market, then employers need not to hire workers. So demand for labor will also fall. Then is productivity of labor. Definitely every employer wants to hire workers which are more productive and can increase the output of the firm. So increase in productivity or higher productivity will increase demand for labor, and if labor is less productive, means it can produce lesser quantity of goods and services in given period of time, then demand for labor will definitely fall. Productivity of capital is also the factor that affect demand for labor. If capital or machines and tools and technology are more productive and efficient as compared to the labor, then demand for labor will fall, because every employer and producer will try to purchase more capital and machines and tools, so demand for labor will be low. The last factor that affects the demand for labor is cost of employing the worker. Cost of employing the worker include other costs apart from the wage rate, and they may include cost of accommodation, cost of medical care, and cost of transportation, as well as education of workers' children. If all these costs are higher, then demand for labor will be low, because employers feel that hiring one worker is really costly for them, so demand for labor will be low. If cost of employing worker is low, then demand for labor will rise, because it will increase the potential of employer to hire greater number of workers. Okay, now we can make graph to show increase and decrease in demand for labor depending upon non-wage factors. This is origin point, we have quantity of labor on X, and this is demand for labor curve, and we have wage rate on y-axis. So if there is rise in demand for labor, then demand for labor curve will shift to the right from DL to DL1. On the other hand, if there is fall in demand for labor, then demand for labor curve will shift to the left, and new demand for labor curve will be DL2. So it shows fall in demand for labor. Now coming to the supply of labor. Supply of labor refers to willingness of workers to supply themselves for a certain job against given wage rate and at a given period of time. So supply of labor also depends upon the wage rate. If wages are high, supply of labor will also be high, and if wages are low, quantity supply of labor will also be low. There is positive relationship between wage rate and supply of labor. And positive relationship or direct relationship is when two variables move in same direction, like wages are increasing and supply of labor is also increasing, and if wages fall, supply of labor will also fall. So this is called direct or positive relationship. Now we can draw a graph to show supply of labor. So supply of labor curve will be positively sloped because of this positive relationship, and this is quantity supply of labor, and this is origin point, and this is supply of labor curve. On y-axis we have again wage rate. If wage rate is W, quantity supply of labor will be, let's say, Q. If wage rate increases, then wage rate increases to W1, then quantity supply of labor will increase to Q1, showing that now more workers are willing to supply themselves. Again, we have to discuss the really important thing again here. And if there is change in wage rate, then it will show movement along the same supply curve. So we are moving from point A to B, let's say. On the other hand, non-wage factors, change in non-wage factors shift supply curve to the right if there is increase in supply, and shift supply curve to the left if there is decrease in supply. So what are those factors that shift supply of labor to the right or to the left? And they include time required for education and training of workers. And the second factor that affects is changes in population. And the third factor is work incentives or fringe benefits. These are main factors that shift supply curve. Okay, if time required for education and training of workers is high, then supply of labor will be low. Like in case of highly skilled and educated workforce, like in case of doctors, it requires a lot of time. It requires a lot of time to educate and train a doctor, so supply of doctors is generally low. And if there is lesser time needed to educate and train one worker, then supply of labor will be high. And on the other hand, changes in population also affects the supply. If there is rise in population, then supply of labor will rise, and if there is fall in population, then supply of labor will fall. And population may change because of birth rate, death rate, net migration, school living age, as well as retirement age. So if there is increase in population due to any reason, then supply of labor will rise, and if there is fall in population, then supply will fall. Work incentives or fringe benefits also affect the supply of labor. If a firm is offering higher fringe benefits, greater fringe benefits, then more workers will be willing to supply for that firm. And if a certain business or factory or office is offering lesser fringe benefits, then workers will not be willing to supply themselves for such jobs. We can have a look on the graph. If there is increase in supply of labor due to any of these factors, or there can be some other factors which may affect the supply of labor. So any kind of factor that is which is causing supply to rise, then supply curve will shift to the right. Let's say initial supply curve is SL. So if there is rise in supply of labor, then supply curve will shift to the right to SL1. So this is rise in supply. On the other hand, if there is fall in supply of labor due to any factor other than wage rate, then supply of labor curve will shift to the left to SL2. So these are the basic concepts of demand and supply of labor. Now we can move to the wage determination under demand and supply theory. Under demand and supply theory, wage rate is determined at a point where demand and supply of labor intersect each other. So wage determination under, okay, as per demand and supply theory, wage rate is determined in labor market at a point where demand and supply curves meet each other. We have seen that demand curve is negatively sloped and supply curve is positively sloped. So we can label origin point, we can label quantity of labor. This is demand for labor, this is supply of labor, and we have wage rate on y-axis. So this is the point of equilibrium where demand and supply meet each other, and wage rate is set W and employment is Q. You can write L as well. In case of labor, you can, instead of Q, you can write L as well. So this is just labeling. It doesn't matter if you write L or Q, or you can post any number. And next thing we have to discuss is changes in wage rate and employment through demand and supply theory. If there is rise in demand for labor, as we have discussed earlier, that demand for labor will shift demand curve to the right. Increase in demand for labor will bring following change in wage rate and employment. For example, if we have initial demand and supply curves, so this is origin point. Again, we have to label quantity of labor on X. This is demand for labor, this is supply of labor. We have wage rate on y-axis, and this is initial equilibrium point where equilibrium wage rate is W and employment is, let's say, Q. Now if there is rise in demand for labor, then due to any non-wage factor, then demand for labor curve will shift to the right. So new demand for labor is DL1, and now equilibrium will move to E1 where wage rate will rise to W1 and employment will rise to Q1. So if examiner asks you that why wage rate for certain type of labor may increase, so you can find out first point that increase in demand for labor leads to increase in wage rate. So those workers who are in high demand, they receive high wages and their employment also increases. Okay, on the other hand, decrease in demand for labor, on the other hand, will have negative impact or quite opposite impact. So we can again draw graph to show its impact, draw equilibrium graph. So it is quantity of labor, demand for labor, and this is supply of labor. On y-axis, we have again the same wage rate, and this is initial equilibrium point where quantity and wage rate can be found. So equilibrium wage rate is W and equilibrium employment is Q. Okay, if now we suppose that there is decrease in demand for labor due to any non-wage factors which we have discussed earlier, then demand for labor curve will shift to the left to DL1. So new equilibrium will take place at E1, and as a result, wage rate will fall to W1 and employment will fall to Q1. So we can see that those workers who are in low demand, they receive low wages. And the next point is increase in supply of labor. If there is increase in supply of labor, then what will happen to the wage rate? We can see it using economic model of equilibrium wage rate determination. Again, draw demand for labor and then supply of labor. This is demand for labor, this is supply of labor. This is equilibrium point where equilibrium wage rate is W and equilibrium quantity or employment is Q. So this is quantity of labor, and on y-axis we have again the same concept, wage rate. And now if there is increase in supply of labor, then supply of labor curve will shift to the right as a basic principle of demand and supply. And new supply curve is now S1, SL1, and new equilibrium will take place at E1 where employment will rise to Q1 but wage rate will fall to W1. So those workers who are in high supply, like in case of unskilled labor force, which is generally greater in supply, they receive low wages, and highly skilled labor force which has low supply receives high wages. And the last thing and last concept which we are going to discuss is decrease in supply of labor, and the fourth concept of demand and supply theory is decrease in supply of labor. We can see using economic model of equilibrium demand and supply, and this is again demand for labor, this is supply of labor, this is origin, and then this is quantity of labor, this is demand for labor, this is supply of labor, and we have wage rate on y-axis. The point where demand and supply meet each other is equilibrium point. Equilibrium is at point E, where wage rate is W and employment is Q. Now if there is fall in supply of labor, those workers who are in less supply, their supply curve as a basic principle shifts to the left, and new equilibrium will take place at E1 where wage rate will rise to W1 and employment will fall to Q1. So employment has decreased and wage rate has increased. So those workers who are in low supply, their wage rate generally increases. So this is the basic principle of demand and supply, and this is really important concept which helps to determine wage rate in labor market. And wages of labor are definitely set through the free forces of demand and supply of labor. Those workers who are in high demand or less supply, they receive high wages, and those workers who are in greater supply or they are in lesser demand, then their wage rate will be low. So this is it for today. I will also explain further types of wage determinations and further concepts of wage determination in subsequent videos. So if you need help in other ways of wage determination, then you are advised to watch other videos as well. So see you soon. This is it for today. This is it. See you soon. Okay, this is the second video of labor market and it is relevant to wage determination under government. When government intervenes in labor market, it may feel that the wage rate workers are receiving are lower than what they should receive, and sometimes government thinks that workers are the part of trade union and they are charging very high wages. So to support producers and business owners, government may set wage rate below equilibrium wage rate. So there are two ways government can intervene and set wage rate. The one is government may intervene by setting minimum wage rate, and the second is maximum wage rate. So these are the 2 points which I will be explaining in this topic. And minimum wage rate, as the name suggests, is wage rate set by government above equilibrium. Minimum wage rate is set above equilibrium and it leads to surplus supply of labor. And we can explain this concept graphically. Suppose we have again demand and supply of labor. This is origin point, this is quantity of labor, this is demand for labor, this is supply of labor. On y-axis we have again wage rate. This is equilibrium point where demand and supply meet each other, and equilibrium wage rate which is prevailing in the market is W and employment is Q. Now if government thinks that wage rate W is not fair for workers, then government will set minimum wage rate above equilibrium. Let's say it is WM to support workers. So this is the minimum wage rate. And as per this minimum wage rate, you can see that this wage line intersects demand for labor at point A and it intersects supply curve at point B. So there is now gap between demand and supply and there is disequilibrium in the market. So supply of labor is greater than demand for labor, and it will lead to increase in unemployment as well, because more workers are now willing to work but employers will hire lesser number of workers. And we can also find out the amount of unemployed worker by finding the quantity on x-axis. Let's say this is quantity demand for labor and this is quantity supply of labor. So this gap is basically the gap between demand and supply is again showing that supply of labor is greater than demand for labor. So this much amount of labor will be unemployed because they will not be able to get employment at wage rate set by the government. And the next situation is maximum wage rate. Maximum wage rate is set by government below equilibrium. Sometimes government thinks that wage rate workers are charging is much higher than it should be in the market. So government may support producers in this case and may set maximum wage rate below equilibrium and may ask business owners not to pay more than that wage rate. So this is demand for labor, this is quantity of labor, this is supply of labor, and this is equilibrium point, and equilibrium wage rate is W and employment is Q. Okay, if government sets maximum wage rate below equilibrium, then what will happen? Then the impact can be shown with this line. So this is the maximum wage rate set by government, and this maximum wage rate will result in decrease in supply of labor. So we can find out the point where Wx is intersecting supply curve. Let's say this is point C. Wage rate Wx intersects supply of labor at point C, where quantity supply of labor is Qs and quantity demand for labor is Qd. So now again there is gap between C and D. This gap is shortage of workers, or you can identify this gap. The gap between demand and supply of labor is again shortage of workers, because when workers feel that the wage rate they are being paid is lower than what they should receive, then they think it unfair and they don't supply themselves. So supply of labor falls, but demand for labor will be high because now more employers will be willing to hire greater number of workers because one worker costs them a little lesser than earlier. So they will demand more workers, but suppliers, yani workers will not be willing to work, so supply of labor will fall. So whenever demand for labor is high, supply of labor is low, there will be a gap between demand and supply, which is known as shortage of workers. Okay, this is the third video of labor market and it is relevant to wage determination under monopoly trade union. Trade union refers to workers association which works for the benefits of member workers, and monopoly mean there is single seller or single union of the labor. So when there is single association of workers which is providing labor force, then it will definitely try to charge high wage rate. And how much wage rate it will charge, we can explain it with graph. We have quantity of labor on X, we have wage rate on Y axis, and now we have to draw two positively sloped straight lines. One is average cost of labor and other one is marginal cost of labor. So this is average cost of labor, which is also known as supply of labor, and this is marginal cost of labor. And as per marginal productivity theory, so this is MRP, marginal revenue product of labor, which is also equal to demand for labor. And as per the theory of demand and supply, equilibrium takes place at EP, and equilibrium wage rate in the market should be WP and employment should be QP. But monopoly trade union tries to use its monopoly power and sets equilibrium where MC is equal to MRP. So equilibrium wage will be set at EM. Equilibrium of monopoly is set at EM where wage rate will be set WM, which is more than the wage rate, normal prevailing wage rate in the market, and it will provide workers equal to QM. So monopoly trade union, using its monopoly power, generally charges high wages and provides lesser number of workers in the market for work. So monopoly trade union tries to charge high wages and provides lesser number of workers. Okay, this is the third video of labor market and it is relevant to wage determination under monopsony employer. So wage determination under monopsony employer. Monopsony employer refers to the single employer of labor. When there is single employer of labor, then it will try to exploit workers and it will try to pay very low wages. And we can explain it graphically. We have quantity of labor on X, we have wage rate on Y axis, and we will have to draw again two straight lines, positively sloped straight lines, which are divergent to each other. This is average cost of labor, which is also known as supply of labor. This is marginal cost of labor, and this is marginal revenue product of labor, which is also known as demand for labor. MRP, marginal revenue product of labor, or it is known as demand for labor. So as per this figure, equilibrium in as per demand and supply takes place at EP, where wage rate in the market should be WP and employment should be QP. Monopsony employer having monopsony power sets equilibrium at EM, at EN, and we can draw perpendicular to find out the level of employment under monopsony employer. Monopsony employer will employ Qn number of workers, which is lesser than the equilibrium employment under perfectly competitive market or under demand and supply of labor. But what wage rate will it pay? It will pay wage rate equal to Wn. When we draw perpendicular from En to Qn, then this perpendicular intersects supply of labor curve at point A. So monopsony employer will pay wage rate Wn. So monopsony employer offers low wage as compared to the prevailing market wage, and it employs lesser number of workers. Hello everybody. The topic I'm going to explain you now is bilateral monopoly, and bilateral monopoly is a phenomena in which single employer faces single seller of labor. So this is bilateral monopoly, and bilateral monopoly, as I told you, is the phenomena when there is single seller of labor as well as single employer of labor. Whenever monopoly trade union faces monopsony employer is the single employer of labor, and monopoly trade union is the single union of workers which is providing labor. So in case of single seller and single buyer of labor, there will be strong negotiation between them, and wage rate will be set accordingly depending upon the negotiation power. The power depending upon the negotiation power, the firm which has more negotiation power will definitely settle wage rate according to its will. So we can explain it graphically. Again, we have to draw two lines, two divergent lines. We have quantity of labor on x, we have wage rate on y axis. This is average cost of labor, which is also equal to supply of labor, and this is marginal cost of labor. Marginal cost of labor is the additional cost of employing one additional unit of worker. So this is marginal revenue product of labor, and this is demand for, also known as demand for labor. And as per demand and supply of labor, equilibrium must take place at EP, where wage rate should be WP and employment should be QP. But monopoly trade union tries to charge high wages as compared to the wage rate prevailing in the market, so it will set equilibrium at EM and it will ask for the wage rate WM. However, if it is facing monopsony employer, then what will happen? For this much amount of worker, QM amount of workers, monopsony employer will offer wage rate equal to WN, and this is, let's say, point A. So in this graph, monopoly trade union will ask for the wage rate WM, but monopsony employer will offer WN. So negotiation, since there is single seller and single employer of labor, so negotiation will take place between them, and the firm which has more negotiation power will be the winner. If monopoly trade union has more negotiation power, then it will set wage rate equal to WM or nearer to WM. However, if monopsony employer is more powerful, then it will set wage rate equal to WN or in or near to WN. Which firm will have more negotiation power? It depends upon the circumstances of the market. At what one time, monopoly trade union might have a lot of powers because there is shortage of workers and employers are looking for workers, and there might be very high demand for products produced by employers, so they will definitely be willing to pay high wages for the workers. So monopoly exploits such situations and it will charge high wages for its member workers. However, in case of economic crisis or in case of economic recession, employers are more powerful and they offer low wages to the workers, and workers are generally willing to work at low wage rate as well, because at that time unemployment rate is really very high and everyone is looking for job. For example, in case of COVID-19, a lot of workers got unemployed, and it was really difficult for people to find new jobs. So in this situation, employers had more power, so they exploited this power and they hired worker at low wage rate as compared to the prevailing wage rate in the market. So negotiation power of each party depends upon the economic circumstances of each case. Hello everybody. The topic for now is wage differentials, and it is really important topic for long questions and for even MCQs questions. And wage differentials mean why different people earn different amounts. Sometimes people earn different amounts in the same job, doing exactly same jobs but earning different amounts, and sometimes they earn different amounts because they are doing different jobs. For example, a doctor might be earning high amount of money as compared to teachers, and teachers might be earning more than the cooks and then other professions, many other professions. So before moving to the factors that cause wage differentials, I would suggest all of you to stop the video and have a look on this table. This table contains weekly wage rate of different occupations and genders in USA as per the data of 2013. So this is real-time data. The first difference is basically the gender difference, men and women. Men are paid greater than women. If we have an overall look on this table, then in each category men are earning more than women. So different people are earning different amounts. The first difference we can figure out is the gender difference. So CEOs, men are earning 2,266 US dollars per week, and this is again data relevant to 2013, and you can find out the recent data from World Development Indicator, which is really a reliable, most reliable organization which publishes data relevant to all of the countries. And you can see that surgeons in USA earn $2,087 per week, and men and women 1,497. So you can see that different people are earning different amounts in USA because of gender difference or the difference of occupation. And what are the other factors that cause wage differentials? And we will have a look on these factors. The first factor that is really important to be considered is demand and supply of labor. And demand and supply of labor determines how much wages should be paid to different people. Those workers who are in high supply, they receive low wages, and the workers with low supply receive high wages. We can make a graph to explain this scenario, and this economic model will explain you why different people earn different amounts depending upon their demand and supply. So initially equilibrium is at point E, where you can see that wage rate is W and employment is equal to Q. The workers which are in high supply, they receive high wages. As per basic demand and supply phenomena, when demand is high, demand for labor shifts to the right. So workers with high demand will receive high wages. So new equilibrium is taking place at E1, where wage rate will rise to W1 and employment will rise to Q1. And on the other hand, if we have a look on the workers who are in low demand, if the demand is low, then demand curve will shift to DL2 to the left, and new equilibrium will take place at E2, where wage rate they will receive is W2 and employment is Q2. So you can clearly see that the workers which are in high demand receive high wages. The workers which have low demand receive low wages. Same is the case with supply. When supply of workers is greater, wage rate will fall, and when supply is low, wage rate will rise. So the workers which are in high supply, they receive low wages, and it is really simple thing, really simple to understand even, that the workers which are in high demand, high supply, their availability is more, so they will receive low wages. For example, as per this figure, you can see that the workers with high supply will receive low wages. When supply is high, supply of labor curve shifts to the right, increase in supply, shift supply to the right, and new equilibrium will take place at E1, where employment will be Q1 and wage rate is W1. So workers with greater supply receive low wages. But on the other hand, if workers are in less supply, those type of workers who are very less in supply, their supply shifts to the left and their equilibrium moves to E2, and they receive high wages to W2. So workers with low supply receive high wages. So the first factor that was basically affecting wage rate of different people was demand and supply of labor. So the next factor is productivity of labor, and productivity of labor definitely affects wage rate. Those workers who are highly productive, they receive high wages, and the workers who are less productive, they receive low wages. Definitely, companies and businesses pay workers accordingly. Those workers who are adding a lot to the output of the company, profit of the company, then companies are comfortable paying high wages to them. But the workers who are less productive and they add lesser output or they add lesser to the profitability of business, then business are not willing to pay them high wages, so they receive low wages. And similarly, ability is another factor. Some people are more qualified, experienced, and skilled, and they are more educated. They have more ability because of greater education and training and skills, etc. So they receive high wages, and it is natural that workers with high qualification generally receive high wages. And then there are some compensating differences as well. And compensating differences mean sometimes workers receive high wages because they are doing some dirty jobs, and dirty job means the job which is dangerous and which has greater life threat. For example, in Germany, pilots are paid high wages because they think that pilots are at stake every time. And similarly, coal miners and the people in armed forces receive high wages because they have life threat all the time. And similarly, we can have a look on the workers who are doing white collar jobs, and they receive generally low wages because they are working in very nice environment and there is no life threat to them, and they are working in safe environment, so they receive low wages generally. Similarly, workers working in unsociable hours like night shifts, like on weekends, they receive high wage as compared to the people who are working in sociable hours and they are doing safe jobs. Then market imperfection is another factor. Market imperfection means sometimes workers are the part of trade union. Market imperfection. If workers are the part of monopoly trade union, they receive high wages. Trade union is workers association which works for the benefits of member workers, and the workers who are the part of union receive high wages. Sometimes workers are facing monopsony employer. Monopsony employer is the single employer of labor who pays less amount of money to the workers. And sometimes government intervention is there which leads to low or high wages for different occupations. For example, if government sets minimum wage rate for a certain profession, then workers will receive high wages, and if government sets maximum wage rate, then workers will receive low wages. And we can make a single graph showing the situation of monopoly trade union, monopsony, and monopsony employer. Monopoly, as the name suggests, is monopoly trade union is the single association of workers which works for the benefits of its member workers. And to make graph for monopoly trade union and monopsony employer, what we have to do is we have to draw three lines like this. And what does these three lines show? We can label them. This is marginal revenue product of labor, which is also known as demand for labor. This is average cost of labor, which is also known as supply of labor. And this is marginal cost of labor. Marginal cost of labor is the additional cost of employing one additional worker. So this is wage rate. You can clearly see that there are two intersection points. So one is, let's say we call it EP, and the other one is EM. Let's say at EP you can see that wage rate is WP and employment is QP, and we are considering that this is perfectly competitive market, or we can call it open market, where demand and supply of labor is determining the wage rate at WP. But monopoly trade union, definitely workers make union to charge wages more than the open market wage rate. So they will never charge this wage rate, they will charge more than this. So for charging more than that what they do is they set their equilibrium where marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue product, and they will charge this much amount of money, and they will basically provide this much amount of workers, QM amount of workers. So monopoly trade union, if workers are the part of monopoly trade union, then they receive high wages. Those workers who are working in open market, they receive low wages. But if workers are facing monopsony employer is the single employer of labor, then they will receive this much amount of money, WN, we can call it WN. WN is monopsony wage rate. Okay, so the workers who are facing monopsony, they receive low wages, and the workers who are the part of trade union, they receive high wages. Government intervention is also another factor that causes wage differentials. The workers who are receiving minimum wage rate, they get more, and the workers who are receiving maximum wage rate, they receive low wages. Maximum and minimum wage rate these are technical terms and they have certain meanings. Minimum wage is the wage rate set above equilibrium. For example, initial equilibrium is at W and employment is Q. If government sets minimum wage rate for certain type of workers, then minimum wage rate as a basic concept is above equilibrium. So this is minimum wage rate, and we call it minimum wage rate because employers cannot pay less than this wage. They can pay more than this. Like in Pakistan, the minimum wage rate is 17,500 Pak rupees per month. So this is minimum wage rate. Already wage rate workers were receiving generally was lesser than this. So government decided that workers should receive minimum 17,500. So it is above equilibrium. And so this is minimum wage rate. It confuses students sometimes because if we are calling it minimum, why it is more than the equilibrium wage rate? Definitely here minimum mean minimum limit. Government sets this minimum limit and asks the employers to pay more than this but not less than this. Okay, then what about maximum wage rate? Maximum wage rate is set below equilibrium. If government thinks that trade unions or workers associations are charging very high wage, then government will set maximum wage rate WX, and it is below equilibrium because government says that employers should pay maximum this. They can pay less than this but not more than this wage rate WX. So this is maximum wage rate. So workers who are receiving minimum wage, they earn high, and those who are facing maximum wage law, they receive low wages. Mobility of labor is another factor. Those people who are more mobile, they might be occupationally mobile or they may be geographically mobile. Those people, mobility means people can move, workers can move from one location to another location or from one occupation to another occupation even. So those workers who are more mobile, they move around and they can travel from one place to another place. They generally earn high wages as compared to the people who are immobile, who are reluctant to move to another job or who are reluctant to move to another geographical area. Pay for performance is another factor that determines pay for performance is another factor, pay for performance. Okay, so sometimes jobs are commission based, and workers who really contribute more, they earn more they earn more commission, and they earn more bonuses, and they earn more rewards. So those workers whose performance is low, they receive lesser incomes. Principal agent issues is another important factor that affects wage differentials. Principal mean owner of the business, and agent mean the person who acts on behalf of the owner, mean worker. So principal is owner of the business or head of institution, and agent is the worker. So the relation between principal and agent definitely determine the wage rate of a worker. And relationship, definitely it is working relationship, and they don't have any kind of family relationship. So what they do is this relationship is generally built on the basis of performance. Those workers who are working well in the eyes of principal, then principal will offer more wages and more bonuses and everything greater than other workers. If the agent and principal have issues and principal thinks that worker is not contributing as per the requirement of company, then he may offer low wages. Age and gender difference is, again, age and gender difference is another important factor. As you have seen at the start of this video, that different women and men were earning different amounts in USA in 2013, and the same phenomena can be observed in 2020. So the cost of living in the region is another factor. Cost of living mean cost of living contributes, many expenses contribute to the cost of living of individuals, like food, accommodation, medical, education, transportation, every kind of expenditure which are necessary for survival of a person and for maintaining a standard lifestyle. They are the part of cost of living. Those areas where cost of living is high, wage rate is generally high, and the areas where cost of living is low, wage rate is also low. For example, in Dubai, cost of living is high as compared to cost of living in Islamabad, and cost of living in Islamabad is more than the cost of living in, let's say, Lahore. So the people living in Islamabad might be receiving more wages because cost of living is higher than Lahore, and the people living in Dubai might be receiving more wages as compared to the people living in Islamabad because cost of living in Dubai is more than the cost of living in Islamabad. And now the last but not the least is the cost of performing the job. Cost of performing the job is really important factor. Performance job. When we talk about cost of performing the job, we talk about the expenses and threats to your health, threats to the health of worker. And if people have more cost to perform the job, they have to pay more cost in terms of it might be in terms of transportation cost. Cost of time is also the part of cost. So the workers who are traveling a lot to perform their job, they might be receiving high wages as compared to the people who have job near to their homes. Similarly, when you perform jobs, you might have to meet different other expenses as well. For example, if you have to purchase multiple instruments, it means you will have to spend a lot of money on purchasing different tools, technology, and instruments. So it will cost you high. When it costs you high, you will definitely charge high wages. And sometimes you are working at the cost of your health, and if you are doing it at the cost of health, then you will definitely ask for higher wages. So these are the multiple factors that affect wage rate of different people, might be working in similar jobs or might be working in different jobs. And it is really important, and important question for 25 marks. Generally, it is asked by the examiner. Hope you can understand it now. If you are still facing any kind of problem, then you can write in comment box. I'm always there to help you out. Hello everybody. The topic I'm gonna teach you today is transfer earning and economic rent. This topic is relevant to labor market, and if you are preparing for midterm examination, then this topic will really help you for MCQ questions generally, and this might be asked in case study as well. So what does transfer earning and economic rent mean? Transfer earning is the earning of a factor of production from next best alternative use. For example, we have factors of production: land, labor, and capital. If we move labor from one use to another use, then whatever labor earns from the next best alternative use is basically transfer earning. For example, if a person as a teacher was earning, let's say, $1,000 per month, and now he decided to move to another job which offers him $900 per month, then $900 is his transfer earning. Why people might shift to another job which offers low wage rate? It generally happens when people are not satisfied with behavior of the boss, or they are not satisfied with the working environment they are already working in. Or they might think that the new job they are going to join is according to their qualification, experience or skill, and they might be able to earn very high amount of money from that new job very soon. So they decide to join another job. Economic rent is the amount of money which is sacrificed by moving to next best alternative use. For example, in this case, we can see that original earning of an individual was $1,000. This is $1,000, and new job offers him $900. So whatever he is sacrificing is economic rent. So economic rent in this situation is original earning of an individual minus transfer earning. So economic rent is 1000 minus 900 is equal to 100. So $100 is the economic rent, the amount of money which he is sacrificing by moving to another job. This concept is very true if we apply it to land, labor or capital, to any factor of production. Now let's have a look how to calculate economic rent and transfer earning from graph. If we make graph showing demand and supply of labor, this is supply of labor, this is demand for labor. So this is origin point, we have quantity of labor on X, this is demand for labor, this is supply of labor, and this is equilibrium point. And on Y-axis we have wage rate, this is wage rate basically. And at equilibrium point E, worker is working for this much hours, this is number of hours worked, and this is wage rate. The current job worker is doing is giving him wage rate equal to OW, and he is working for OQ number of hours. So total amount he earned originally is, so his original earning is equal to OWEQ. If we multiply height, this is height and this is base. If we multiply height and base, we will get total earning OWEQ. And if the person moves to an alternative job, then he will be able to earn this much amount, this triangle, which is his transfer earning. OEQ is the earning from next best alternative job. So transfer earning is, his transfer earning is equal to OEQ, and he is sacrificing this much amount of money. This is economic rent. So economic rent is equal to OWE. OWE, this triangle is economic rent. Now let's have a look on different scenarios when economic rent might be different for different people. When supply of worker is perfectly inelastic, the total earning of an individual will be an economic rent. For example, if we draw a graph showing vertical straight line supply of labor curve and a normal demand curve. This is demand for labor, this is supply of labor, this is origin point, and this is working hours, and on y-axis we have wage rate. So this is initial equilibrium where equilibrium wage rate is OW, and original earning of an individual is equal to OWEQ. We can relate it to the previous graph. You can see that the area below supply curve, this is the area below supply curve, this is the area below supply curve, and before working hours is transfer earning, and the area above supply curve but below equilibrium wage, current equilibrium wage, is economic rent. So we can apply this concept here as well. So the area below equilibrium wage rate and above supply curve is economic rent. It means in this scenario we can see that there is no area below supply curve and between the working hours. So it means whatever initially he was earning will be treated as economic rent, because he will have to lose all of his income if he leaves his current job. So economic rent is equal to the original earning, that is OWEQ. If supply of labor is perfectly elastic, then the person will be able to get exactly same wage rate from new job, from next best alternative job, and there will be no economic rent. If supply of labor is perfectly elastic, then worker will be in the position to get exactly same wage from the next best alternative job, so he will lose nothing, and whatever he was initially earning will get exactly same wage rate. So this is supply of labor, this is quantity of labor or working hours. We can write working hours here. And this is normal demand for labor curve. Equilibrium wage is E and equilibrium working hours are Q. So original earning of worker in this situation is OWEQ. This is original earning, whatever he was earning from current job. If he moves to another job, then his transfer earning is equal to OWEQ and his economic rent is equal to 0. So all of this amount of money is his transfer earning, because whatever he was earning from the current job, the new job will exactly offer him the same wage rate, so he is losing nothing. So economic rent is 0. Whatever he was earning initially is transfer earning. The next scenario is inelastic supply of labor. Whenever supply of labor is inelastic, then economic rent will be greater, and we can have a look on this graph. This is supply of labor, which is steep and showing inelastic demand, inelastic supply. And this is normal demand curve. This is origin point. We have quantity of labor. This is demand for labor. This is supply of labor. And equilibrium takes place at point E, where equilibrium wage rate is W and working hours equal to Q. And we can join this point, and this is, let's say, point A. In this graph, you can see that the area below supply curve and before working hours is transfer earning. So this much is transfer earning, and this is the economic rent. The workers which have inelastic supply means they are highly qualified and they are highly experienced, and they cannot move to alternative jobs. Job they are already doing is best job for them. So if they choose another job, then definitely they will have to sacrifice more, mean their economic rent will be greater. Another scenario is supply of labor is elastic. When supply of labor is elastic, it means small change in wage rate will lead to greater change in quantity supply of labor. So supply of labor curve will be flatter like this, and this is normal demand curve. In this situation, economic rent will be relatively low and transfer earning will be high. For example, if we have wage rate on y-axis and quantity of labor on x, so this is equilibrium point, and equilibrium wage rate is W, and let's say this is point B, and this is working hours Q. As per this figure, if the worker moves to another job, to alternative job, then he will be able to earn this much amount of money. This is transfer earning, which is OWEQ, and this is economic rent. It means worker with greater supply have lesser economic rent and more transfer earning. So this is really important concept of labor market, relevant to labor market, and you can practice this concept from A2 level economics, A2 level economics, topical paper 3 by Kamar Baloch. And in this book, each and every MCQ has been explained in detail. The answers are also given, and every answer is also explained with reasoning. And wherever it is needed, graphs have also been made. So if you are struggling in MCQs, then I suggest all of you must have this book, and this book is easily available. You can search it online, and in Pakistan, especially, every bookstore has this book. You can demand there, and if you are not in Pakistan, then you can go to Amazon and get it from there. So best wishes. Thank you.